Hello, good afternoon. I'm here presenting representing a session that I did on home education law, the very basics from the four different parts of the United Kingdom. I did this presentation at the Home Educators Family Festival on the 22nd of August. And I've been asked to do it again for people that missed it and to put it up as a recording. So that's what we're doing here today. I have a couple of people who've come along to join me on this, and I'm hoping that we may get a couple more people and we get some good questions afterwards. This is a very basic course, a very basic presentation. It really is just about the very basics of the law as it pertains to home education in the United Kingdom. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to share my screen because I have a lovely presentation up here, and hopefully everybody can see that now. Yes. Okay, so you can still see I did put the logo for HEF on there. The Home Educators Family Festival, by the way, is a wonderful event. Happens every year. It will be happening again in Staffordshire this year, and next year rather. And we had a wonderful time. In fact, I stayed an extra 2 days, and this presentation was one that I did in an emergency to fill in. But it was the most popular one, so might do a rerun next year. Okay, so we're going to get started with this. Okay, so there are four legal jurisdictions in the United Kingdom. We've got England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. They all have their own legislation. Now, education has been devolved in Scotland for a lot of years, as it has in Northern Ireland and more recently in Wales. So they all like to jockey for position as being better than the others at producing education legislation. It's quite amusing. So there are a few definitions that we really need to understand if we are going to look at home education law. The first one is efficient. So efficient education, basically that means it achieves what it sets out to achieve. So you can have, in fact, the new home education guidelines in England, which I have seen the pre-consultation draft of, and been working on with the DFE. They actually say in them that you can have an efficient education that's not suitable. So you can have an education that does what it says it's going to do, does what it says on the tin, but actually isn't good enough. So we have to be fairly wary of that efficient word. Full-time, that always comes up. Obviously, children are at school about 22 hours a week for 38 weeks of the year. But depending on how you present your home education to a local authority, if they're doing or a school board, if they're doing an inquiry, it could be said that, you know, if you're available to answer questions, regardless of whether you have a very structured kind of education or a very informal kind of education, it could be said that your education is pretty much all the waking hours that the child has, because they ask you questions and you have conversation. Roland Megan used to describe a technique that we all unconsciously do if we're good parents, and it's called purposive conversation. So you'll have a conversation and the child will be probing and asking and exploring a subject, and that purposive conversation is a massively valuable educational tool. Suitable is the word that we really need to dig down on in law. This piece, this first quote, that it's suitable if it primarily equips a child for life within the community which is a member, rather than the way of life in the wider country as a whole, as long as it does not foreclose the child's options in later years to adopt some other form of life if he wishes to do so. That's from I've quoted it just down at the bottom, R versus Secretary of State for Education, the Talmud Torah School Trust. So they had a very religious education, and they were taken to task over it. Because it didn't look like a state school education, and the Secretary of State lost the case because this definition of suitable came up. So basically, you know, you can have a culturally appropriate education, but you're still going to need functional skills, so that if you're not there anymore, that you can adopt another form of life. So putting aside special educational needs, if you ended up with a 16-year-old who could not read or write, and couldn't add up, and didn't understand anything about money or life, or how to fill in a form or cross a road, then it would not be a suitable education, because they couldn't leave your home or your community and live outside of it. The second definition is preparing children for life in a modern civilized society and enabling them to achieve their full potential. And that was from a previous piece of case law, which was the Harrisons in 1981. Iris Harrison has just died a couple of weeks ago, actually. I knew her relatively well. And she paved the way for some of the modern home education. She's one of what I would call the home education pioneers. It'd start with Joy Baker, and she's another one, and Roland Megan was another one. So moving on, we're going to look at England first, because most people, that you know, that we've got 90-some thousand home educated children in England at this current moment in time. So it's by far the biggest population within the UK of home educated children. So the interesting thing across the world is that home education is often something that you have to opt into, whereas in the UK it's not. You opt into school because education is compulsory, but school is not. So it's very, very important to understand that when you're looking at the law. We also have deregistration on demand. So you simply write a letter to the school and say that you're going to home educate. So that's also quite distinct. You're not asking for permission. There's no permission to home educate. You're simply notifying. This really upsets people sometimes in schools, because they will talk about your request to home educate, and you have to explain to them that no, you have instructed them to remove your child from the school roll. So it's quite important that you understand that. And the fact is that if you've written to deregister your child, yet the school have refused to remove your child from the roll, it is them that are committing an offence, not you. And you can just carry on your merry way, so long as you have proof that that deregistration has been delivered. We do have permission to deregister in special school, but again, it's not permission to home educate, it's permission to deregister, and that's intended to be so that things can be put in place if they need to be put in place to meet your child's special educational needs. And if you have an SAO, that's a school attendance order. So if you've got a school attendance order in place, you do need permission to deregister. There's no support available from local authorities in general terms, neither financial nor physical. And in fact, a lot of local authorities currently are quite anti home education. We're having a bit of trouble at the moment. But in England, there are 14-16 college places available. You might have to fight for it. You might have to download some information from the DFE website and stick it under the nose of the college. In Lancashire, they have to be, the child has to be referred to some of our colleges for a 14-16 place, because they've got the knickers in a twist over safeguarding and they don't understand what the law says. But I'm just not rocking the boat round here, because, you know, if I can get the kids in, I can get the kids in, that's great. GCSEs are available as a private candidate, but they can be very expensive. We've currently got one company that's virtually got a monopoly, that's been enabled by the Department for Education to be a monopoly, because a lot of schools, because of all the nonsense around COVID and GCSEs, a lot of schools have stopped allowing private candidates. One of the things I always say to parents is go and see your local school. Go and talk to the examinations officer. You have to talk to the examinations officer, nobody else. The examinations officer is the person in charge, and offer them 50, 60 quid per subject, and go really early on. So we're talking the end of the previous summer or in the early autumn. That's when you need to start putting these things in place. So as a private candidate, you just get a desk, and they send in your they register your child to take the exam, and they send off the papers to the exam board. So that's what happens if you're a private candidate. Expensive. Well, at the moment, tutors and exams are looking at something along the lines of £240 per subject, which is very steep. But these exams can be spread over a number of years. My own son started when he was 14. We opted for his best subject, which was maths. So he did his GCSE maths when he was 14, and then he did 2 further GCSEs when he was 15 and 3 further ones when he was 16. So that was a nice spread, and he didn't have to worry too much. The bit of the law in England that enables you to home educate is this one, and this is where, as I said before, it says that education is compulsory. So it's the duty of a parent to secure an education, the education of children of compulsory school age. And the education has to be suitable to age, ability and aptitude, and to any special educational needs or learning needs if they're in Wales. Okay, either by regular attendance at school or otherwise. And the reason that the main home education support organisation in England and Wales is called Education Otherwise is because of that otherwise label there. I'm just going to give a couple of seconds because my internet said it was unstable. So the current guidance is here, and I will put these links in the blurb of the video that I put up. The current guidance is here. We're about to have a consultation on a new set of guidance. The new guidance is much better than this one, and fingers crossed, you know, it will go smoothly with the consultation, and it will be even further improved. I'm having my last meeting with the DFE about that guidance tomorrow. So in Scotland, again, home education is the default and you opt into school. And they don't call it deregistration in Scotland, they call it withdrawal. And the Scottish home educators will get very upset with you if you talk about deregistration in Scotland. And in fact, I had to take the word withdrawal out of the English guidance just last Friday that they sent me because they'd used the wrong word. So consent for withdrawal is required, and it's based on your proposals to home educate. So you actually have to make some proposals. You have to say, little Johnny and I are going to sit down and do this, that and the other. We're going to assess where he is with his reading, whatever it is. You don't need consent if you start from the beginning. So it's only if you go into school that this consent for withdrawal is required. It's not technically consent to home educate, but de facto it's pretty much is. There's a maximum 6-week wait allegedly for the consent to withdraw. An AO, that's the Scottish version of a school attendance order. You need permission again. There's a recommendation in the guidance that contact from local authorities is annual to do an informal inquiry. 14 to 16 college, again, it's rare but possible. Now, here's where Scotland falls down. There is no access to their exams. Their equivalents of GCSE is called SQAs. and there is you can't be a private candidate for an SQA. So you end up having to do IGCSEs or come into England and do some GCSEs at a school. And it does cause a lot of problems for children of 16, etc. You can see that this is the part of law which talks about compulsory education. It's very similar to the English one. It's the duty of every parent of every child of school age to provide an efficient education for him suitable to his age, ability and aptitude, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so right to education is the second part of that section. And again, the guidance is available. There is only one home educating support organisation in Scotland now, and that's homeeducationscotland.org.uk. The website is not as good as the old Schoolhouse website, unfortunately. So, where are we? We are going into Northern Ireland. Oh, Northern Ireland. So again, you opt into school. There's deregistration on demand. Again, it's a letter to the principal, like it's a letter to the school in England. But if you're in a special school, you don't need permission to deregister. Okay, so that's we're all moving to Northern Ireland, by the way, because they have the best guidance out of the four. The guidance is absolutely glorious. They did it in conjunction with I was involved for a couple of years with it, but they did it in conjunction with the Home Educators. They brought out a draft that was absolutely awful, and the Home Educators really got together and made their case for them not to have it like that. And they sat down and they wrote it over a long period of time and consulted on it, and it's brilliant. And there is no monitoring in Northern Ireland. They just respond to concerns, and that's a massive difference. That's the way it used to be in England, and even though the law has not changed in England, practice has, as it has. It's always been a bit monitoring-ish in Scotland, but in Northern Ireland, they've decided that they should just respond to concerns. So that's why we're all moving to Northern Ireland. Again, very similar legislation, and I've just popped on the bit about school attendance orders at the bottom of that one, but it's almost identical legislation, and theirs is from 1986, but it was based on the English 1944 Education Act, the Butler Act. And there's their guidelines and the support. HEDNI is a fantastic organisation. I know two ladies who helped to run it personally, and they are absolutely brilliant. Their website's superb. It's really good stuff. Really good stuff. So moving on to our last area, which is Wales. Again, home education is the default, deregistration on demand, all the same things. 14 to 16 college, so very similar to England. However, in Wales, they have recently put in place some new guidelines, and they are the worst guidelines we have ever seen. They're absolutely dreadful. So we've got massive problems with them. So they call the special education these additional learning needs in Wales. And the thing that's like we have an EHCP in England, you have a statement in Scotland. They used to have statements, but now they have this additional learning thing. And the additional learning provision has to be provided for children who are home educated. So unlike all the other places where you're looking at meeting the needs, and that the way that you meet the needs could be very different to what it would look like in school, in Wales you have to provide exactly the same provision as they've dictated a school would provide. So it actually makes home education really difficult if you've got one of these plans. They've also they're breaking GDPR all over the place with the information sharing. They've asked people to have cross-referencing organisations. They're cross-checking children, entering statutory provision against partner databases such as early years childcare teams and health. It's going to lead to a disaster, really. They think they're safeguarding children by doing this. Number one, the government's famously bad at looking after databases. Number two, they're famously bad at not only securing the databases, but putting correct information into databases. And number three, we're going to end up with a bunch of families not seeking any kind of help whatsoever when they need it, because they don't want to raise their head above the parapet. So they're encouraging the local authority to see and communicate with the child. They're wanting access to homes, and they are not allowing there not to be a meeting with a child. Encourage them to consider whether home education is in the best interest of the child, when clearly it is not what the child wants. Again, we said the obvious, which is if you're going to ask children who are home educated whether they want to go to school, then you have to ask all the school children whether they want to be home educated. So again, forcing meetings, etc. We did get some changes, or should I say Education Otherwise managed to force a couple of changes. So it may sound pathetic, this, but it's actually not. So we've managed to get 4.21 change. So it said the local authority should see and communicate with the child, and we've got that should change to a may, which in legal terms is terrific. And we've also inserted that it should be individual circumstances, not not a black and white thing. And we added in as well, relating to the suitability of their education, that the views that they are gathering should only relate to the suitability of their education. So we did get some changes in, but it's not great, and it's not going to do what they think it's going to do. And there's a Facebook support group called Home Ed Cymru, which is where there's some good support there. Education Otherwise is supporting them there. Okay, so does anybody have any questions they want to ask me, or are we all going to be completely silent? Oh, Sarah's going to unmute herself. Hopefully. Press the button. Yay!
Hello, I don't know if I missed a tiny little bit because I came on a little bit late, and I think I heard something about educational needs, and I didn't quite get the context, and then I thought I might have missed an important bit. I have already taken my son out of school, but I haven't given the deregistration letter, which I'm going to do this week. He has an EHCP. So does that mean that they can decline permission?
Right, so the first thing I need to know is, when you say you've already taken him out of school but not sent in the deregistration letter, why is that?
Because I was having to collect him every day, because they were calling me to collect him because he was trying to run away from school and saying he was going to jump off a bridge.
Wow.
That's what school has done to my son. So
how old is your son?
He's 12, but we've had the same thing from when he started school. When he was 5, he started to try and cut himself and having panic attacks on the way to school every day.
And presumably he doesn't do those things at the end. By the time he gets to the end of the summer holidays, he's your little boy again.
Yeah, and he always was before he started school as well. I mean, I saw the obvious change, but I just wasn't able to take him out because I'm on my own and I have to work. But now I'm in a position where I can.
That's absolutely brilliant. So yeah,
Very pleased.
get that deregistration letter in as soon as possible. Is he registered at a mainstream school or a special school?
It's mainstream.
Excellent. No permission required. Just get on with it.
Ah, amazing. So that's what I thought I heard, and I wasn't sure which way round it was. Okay, so I can just do the registration as normal.
Yes.
And they've also said to me, sorry, everyone else, I hope it's relevant to somebody. They've also said that initially the lead said that the HCP funding could be transferred to me. Now, that's not the be all and end all. I'm not really bothered if we don't get it. But she had originally said that. And then the person from Waltham Forest Social Care, in charge of education and special needs, she has said that they have to decide. But when I've been looking at the law, it seems that a child with an EHCP is regarded as a pupil, whether they're home educated or educated in school. So surely it's pupil funding, not school funding under the newest legislation. I don't know if you know about that.
No, you don't get any money. You won't get any money. Almost certainly you won't get any money. In very rare circumstances, where the local authority decide that home education is the only solution for a child with an EHCP, in very rare, and which is a big admission for a local authority to make. If you can imagine, we can't meet its needs, but you can, is something that's quite a big deal to say. So in those circumstances, you can sometimes get some money, but there's a lot more oversight for what you do with your child, and a lot more dictation of what you should do with your child, usually. But in general terms, I mean, it's not going to be, I mean, considering he was at a mainstream school, etc., I'm imagining that his special needs will be. I'm not asking for too many details because of course we're recording this, Sarah, and it's going up on the internet.
Yeah.
But in general terms, you won't find it expensive. Certainly not at the age of 12. Unless you are intending to bring in a lot of tutors and things like that. But if you can reconnect him with learning as being a pleasurable thing, he wants to do. Children are natural learners. They are very natural learners. And unfortunately for many, school removes their natural learning ability. And then by the time they get back to university, the universities are trying to get them to reconnect with that natural learning ability. Freedom and choice are very, very important in these circumstances, especially if your poor child has had such a struggle with his education so far because of it's not he was never supposed to go to school, was he? He
wasn't.
It just never suited him. I've got one like that. I never sent him to school, luckily. But I'm
lucky for
like
you.
that. And he was yeah, I think we'd have had similar.
Yeah, it's quite distressing for them.
But it's, he'll grow up and he'll be fine. It'll be fine because you.
Yeah, I think just in time. We've got him just in time, I think.
Good. But well done. Well done.
And one more question with the HCP: if he's out of school, can I get them to drop it?
No.
So that he can have it.
No, you can't.
No.
Because the needs don't disappear, do they?
Okay, so I'll have to do potentially a formal review every 3 months.
No,
that's what it says under the HCP. If he's in school, he needs a 3-monthly review.
Yeah, well, he's not in school now, so he has an annual review, and that's it.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Heather, have you got any questions, or are you okay? Shall I just carry on? I'm going to assume I can just carry on. And oh, hello.
Yeah, all fine, thank you.
Oh, good. hopefully it's enough of an overview to get you all started. So I've put a few things on the end of this presentation here that I think are really important, because we have to guard this legislation. The home education is under threat all over the world right now. Governments don't like it. It doesn't do the thing. They'll claim on the one hand that they want innovative, flexible people, but on the other hand, they will attack home education that produces flexible, innovative people. So we do have to be on our guard all the time. Now, I've been campaigning in home education for around about 20 years. No, longer than that. A long time anyway, yeah, 25 years. I've watched it go through some changes, and I've watched a lot of aggression towards home education. And we're going to have to, just be mindful that people just talk a lot of rubbish when it comes to home. They make assumptions. I mean, how many times you're all home educators? You will all get asked, how do they socialise? You will all get asked, and we should see these questions as opportunities to educate people about home education. Well, my child socialises very well, thank you very much, because they're mixing with people of all ages. They're learning really good habits. They're not just stuck in a group of their peers where the bullying is rife and the bad behaviour is infectious. So we have to look at this accepted truth stuff that goes on. Our kids are in a cupboard under the stairs, they're not socialised, and they'll never get anywhere in life. We've got to undo those accepted truths. There's a couple of quotes here. George Orwell, in his book 1984, "In a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act." I like that one. Dustin Lance Black, he's Tom Daly's husband. Tom Daly, the diver. In order to change, he's a massive campaigner in gay rights. In order to change policy, you need to change minds, and in order to change minds, you need to change hearts, and you do this by telling stories. That's really true, is that? So our stories have to be out there. We have to tell people stories, because they will connect with stories in a way that they don't connect with, I don't know, an academic paper or something like that. And Julian Bond, a human rights activist, good things do not come to those who wait, they come to those who agitate. You'll have heard that before. Okay, so the truth does hurt people in power, because it conflicts, it creates a dissonance with them. Because if it doesn't sit with their lived and accepted experience, it's very difficult. If it doesn't match the advice they are given, so MPs get advised by people, and sometimes they get advised wrongly, and there isn't an incentive to change the accepted ways and beliefs. They want to remain comfortable in their ignorance, and we have to make them uncomfortable by telling the stories of why we home educate and how good it is. And possibly how much our children have suffered at school, if they have suffered at school. There's a belief in this country that school is a benign thing, and I'm not anti-school at all. I have one child at school right now. I'm not anti-school, but I am anti some of the things that happen in schools. And I do think that we need to revisit the system. And I'm also a trustee. I'm the chair for the Centre for Personalised Education, but I'm also a trustee for Human Scale Education. And as a charity, we try to humanise education more, and talk to schools and things about making it more human. So there are several things that you can do. Keeping a dialogue going with your MP and local councillors, telling them stories, making the truth live, and if they do make those stupid statements like, home education's a risk, a safeguarding risk, you say, where's the evidence? So challenge them, be challenging. Forums with local authorities are a really useful tool. So local authorities, some local authorities have forums where both sides can come and meet on a regular basis, maybe 3 monthly, 6 monthly, whatever. And you can bring issues to the forum that are not personal issues. So they're not case related, they are generalist. So, you know, the local authority might say, well, we've had a spate of reports that all look exactly the same, and it's a real problem, you know, and you can chat about that with them, and you can chat about those letters you send out are just really aggressive, and I think there's some better language we can use. Maybe we can sit down together and write a new letter. So developing that relationship with the local authority will also mean that they understand the home educators better, not on an individual level, but on a group level. And a lot of the problems that happen in local authorities happen purely because of ignorance and assumptions. So getting to know them on a group level is which is also safe. And we all say to local authorities, and no, you're not allowed to take a register of people that turn up. People should be allowed to turn up and not give you their names. And there should be room at the back of the room to do whatever it is you want with your children, you know, so that you can bring the children along. Because as home educators, we spend 24/7 with our children. So do join a national support organisation. That's really, I think I've spelled organisation wrong. That's a really important thing to do, because those people are there when it all goes horribly wrong. You know, that's where at the moment some of the lobbying happens. There's a new organisation called HELP, the Home Education Legal Project. And I'm a director of that. It's a company limited by guarantee, so it's a not-for-profit company. And we're setting up to educate everybody about the law on home education. So it's only just been set up, and it's got a sister organisation called the Joy Baker Fund. And the Joy Baker Fund, after the pioneer of modern home education, Joy Baker, the Joy Baker Fund is going to hopefully fund things, court cases and training and things like that. Not little local court cases, but anything where it's likely to be some kind of case law made. So personal stories of grief and triumph need to go in the press, you know. And you know, talk to your neighbours, don't shy away. We need to be out in the public. The not back to school picnics are a good example of that. So everybody thinks that the national not back to school picnics are for celebrating that you are home educating and not going back to school. That's not why we started them. We started them so that we could show our families and our children to the public, so that the public would see us out and about, not at school, and it could become a more normal thing. So that it does have the, you know, you are celebrating your home educating as well, but it's really important. So yeah, being part of your community, being visible, vocal and contributing. Take part in demonstrations where you can, stamp your feet, make your voice heard. And never say or think that your one little voice will not make a difference, because there's power in numbers, and the more of us who are out there acting together and pushing what is right and proper and true, the more likely it is to happen. So you can go and watch A Bug's Life if you want to see power in numbers. That's quite good, where they all rise up, and there's the power in numbers. So I just want to say thank you very, very much from my organisation, from me, the Centre for Personalised Education. We are around on Facebook. If you want to find us, we are rebirthing ourselves at the moment. We've rebranded ourselves, and now we're rebirthing ourselves post-COVID, because we've had a tough time with volunteers during COVID. So we're hoping that things are going to start getting a lot better very soon. I'm certainly working on the new website, and we are the experts in flexi schooling as well, for example, and we support all types of learning communities outside of the mainstream and criticise the mainstream on a regular basis. So I just want to say thank you very much, and I'm going to stop the recording now, if I can. And well, we'll stop sharing first. There we go. You could get me back. And we'll stop the recording. So thank you very much for coming.